But what we'd like to do is, we are recording this right now, is to ask everyone if they have any questions that were not answered, and or we'd like to ask any of the panelists who were here. So we're going to submit, NAWRB, with the help of DC Finance, because it's their conference, submit a response on January 10th. They're actually going to have a hearing at the Treasury about the last proposal, the last regulations that are supposed to be finalized. And we have until January 19th to submit it, but if we want to actually have them heard, we have to submit it by January 10th. So everyone in this room, we'd love to hear any questions that you might have, any complications, any responses that you'd like to see presented to them. We're opening it up. So everyone, if you have a mic in front of you. To put them at ease, Chelsea, why don't we start with you? I know you're not allowed to comment, so out of your, as you paraphrase this is not my this is my personal views, have nothing to do with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Why don't we say, we'll say that again. But if you were in their shoes, what kind of questions are you looking at that you'd like to see?
Well, I think certainly our primary concern is, again, reporting requirements. And I think we were heartened a bit by the latest news coming out of the executive order that reporting requirements have a strong possibility of being included in the January set of regulations. But I think we'd like to see clearer reporting requirements and standards when it comes to investment and opportunity funds. Certainly, I think there needs to be more clarification about the treatment of funds in the opportunity zones and the opportunity to roll over funds within existing zones, right? These are really long-term horizons. We'd like more clarification on like appropriate exit strategy and the kind of retention of assets that need to be required in these communities. So those are some of the top line things that I think broadly from my perspective and not the perspective of
I got it. It's all just Chelsea, all
that I'd really love
beautiful Chelsea up here.
that I'd really love to see up front.
Can we get some kind of, would it be inappropriate for me to ask that if you were to submit or give us some guidelines, what kind of metrics you would like to see in the data?
I mean, well, I think that's interesting. And again, I think, you know, frontline 5 mark, 7 mark needs to be customized to the context of the investment, but I think we can actually make strong gains on what the 10-year, what the final metrics should look like, right? There are real metrics associated with economic mobility, increased prosperity in communities, living wage, average median income of households, right? The quality of the labor market, right? Even health metrics, right? There are some things that tangibly tell us that comprehensive economic development occurred in these communities. And I think certainly that can be incorporated into the regulation, right? While still retaining the flexibility that needs to be there to customize that investment thesis based on the local context.
Okay, excellent.
And I would say, like, we've actually, through Local Initiative Support Corporation, are also helping to submit some suggestions. And I think one thing in terms of the metrics is some very simple stuff we think would be really helpful, which is it's really easy to create an opportunity zone fund. You just have to check a box on a form when you create your fund with the IRS. And why not have that form also say, is this to create housing? Is this to create jobs? And how many units of housing are you creating for people under 80% of AMI? Or how many jobs are you creating that would be, you know, new jobs for residents in the community? Or is this for healthcare? Is this for charter schools? Just something so that would be a really quick way to say X number of projects, X number of funds were created last year, and 50% of them helped to create, were for the purpose of economic development, or were for the purpose of housing. And that would be a really good way to make sure the program is kind of moving as it was supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. They also have some comments that we came up with, non-qualified financial property. The Treasury Department of the IRS requests comments on the adequacy of the working capital safe harbor and of the auxiliary safe harbors that protect the business during the working capital period, and whether there's a statutory basis for any additional relief. Comments are also requested about the appropriateness of any further expansion of the working capital concept beyond the acquisition, construction, or rehabilitation of tangible business property to the development of business operations in the opportunity zone. So here we are talking about outside the normal development of what we're talking about as far as business operating. Any comments or suggestions on that one? You're all going to be talking, otherwise I'll come and put the mic in front of you. Don't all get excited too fast. No comments?
Can I ask another question?
Sure. Please.
What was Karen? About, I have a question about affordable housing. One of my projects, I could take to be affordable, and then from New York, I could get about $45,000, no, somewhere in the neighborhood of $45,000 to $50,000 per unit toward the land, and there was other incentive. First of all, if you were aware about it, I'm speaking about specifically New York, and then how such incentives can play into this opportunity. I mean, you cannot do double dipping, right? Or, because you know what I'm speaking, which program, I don't recall exactly the name, but I could get money per unit of building. It was in Mamaroneck, it was 102 units.
So you're saying there would be a subsidy for helping you purchase the
It was
property?
affordable, that's right. It was paying, if I will do all the project affordable, not only 20%
Yeah.
like the municipal, then they was willing to give me, beside other, $45,000, $50,000 per unit.
Okay.
It came to about $5 million.
So right now, just in terms, I don't know that program, but I do know that right now within the current opportunity zone legislation, people have been looking at, there doesn't seem to be any prohibition about combining different types of currently available tax credit or other affordable programs in with the opportunity zone benefits. Okay, so there's nothing that prohibits that within the current regulations, and the feeling is that if they wanted to prohibit it, then they have on other programs like tax-exempt bonds can only be used in coordination with certain other types of programs and not with others. They would actually state that. So that's the current thought, but I would probably talk to an attorney about it as well.
One of the other questions we came up with was post-tenure gain exclusion if zone designation expires. Just some minor things, you know. And we have several, and I just didn't want to get too crazy. Safe harbors for statutory qualifying property tests includes several rules limiting taxpayers from benefiting from the deferral and exclusion of capital gains from income offered by this section without also locating investment within a qualifying opportunity zone. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We have 6 pages. Obviously, we won't go through it today. But the idea is that if, I think in wrapping it up, because I know they want to get ready for dinner, is think about this. There's a lot that we've discussed today, right? There's been a lot of talk, a lot of conversations, and a lot of outside the room. I want to make sure that, if it's okay with you, Chelsea, that we give out your contact information. Please talk to the government. They love to speak to you, believe it or not. They don't bite. I know that every year we have the Omni directors from the FDIC, the CFPB, which, oh my gosh, you don't want to talk to them, and the NCUA and SEC and OCC, and we could go down the list, come to our conference to speak. And one of the things is that they want you to talk to them. They want you to communicate with them and how to engage and get better. And when you do that, you put yourself out there to where everyone wants to talk to you because you have that wealth of information. So let's start with you, Chelsea. How do they get a hold of you? And what is a best way of communication? And where can they get some resources that are so valuable to help when they do ask you questions that they've got the basic 101s out of the way?
I mean, obviously, happy to give out telephone and email. Email is usually the best way to reach us, and the director of the team is actually in the back there, Adrian Franco, so you should also cannibalize that guy. But I mean, we have there's a lot of excellent community resources, and I was just having this conversation with Desiree. I'm happy to share those with Desiree so that the organization could put them out. But there are tools that have been created specifically in response to this benefit, which I think is really cool because communities truly feel empowered to try to not only map their assets, but do so in a way that really tells a powerful story about what the opportunities are in their communities, right? Who do they want to be? So there are tools like the Opportunity 360 tool, which does a really interesting job of not only mapping the opportunity zones, but also layering on where new market tax credit, live tech investments are, empowerment zones are. Because again, to make this thing go, you have to imagine that it's going to take a fairly innovative capital stack in certain projects. So, and again, I think that's the idea behind the executive order that's coming out to create that interagency council at the federal level. So happy to share those resources. I think at a high level, those resources are important to have at your fingertips, particularly when you're trying to tell a story to, the fund manager is trying to tell a story about what investment in this community looks like. So we're happy to share that. We obviously have our own portal at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. It's just newyorkfed.org/CRA, and we have tremendous resources on community development finance coming out of our portfolio. So I think those are just some of the high-level resources we should mention.
I'm sorry, can you repeat
New
that?
York, nyfed.org/CRA. And of course, our team's contact information is on there, as well as additional resources.
Excellent, thank you. And then also what's happening is that with that information, we're going to include it in our 2019 economic report that we put out every year, and we're going to have one totally dedicated to social impact opportunity zones. So the more resources we get from every one of these conferences and from all sides of it and putting it together so we all can share and benefit instead of having to travel everywhere and go see everyone and just get, it's having that resource guide right there. So excellent. So Karen, how do we get a hold of you?
So I think email is also the best, but also I would point people here to two websites that we have. One is lisc.org, LISC.org, and on that it will list out those of us that are working on opportunity zones and our contact information. But we also have links, I think, to some really interesting sites. The CDFA, Community Development Finance Association, has a really good resource page, and they're also mapping out opportunity zones, but they have a lot of good information there. Economic Innovation Group is the group. EIG is the one that actually got the whole Opportunity Zone Marketplace started, the whole program, and brought in Senator Scott and Cory Booker. And on our site, list.org, there is a link to go to their site, and they have a whole site on opportunity zones and kind of the policy making part they're doing as well. Yes?
Sorry, EIG stands for what again?
Economic Innovation Group.
Innovation.
Is another really great resource page. And then we have a one-pager out on the table for when you came in. If you want to take that, my phone number is on that, along with my email. And I won't spell my name out, but our page is NEFINC.org is the website for National Equity Fund. And but again, you also find all that information on the one-pager out at the front. Thank you, Desiree.
You're welcome.